hear me? Yeah. I was expecting a little bit longer, but you guys are ready to go. We're ready too. Okay, elementary school. Right now we have about 550 students and growing every day. I just enrolled a couple fifth graders last week and a third grader, and about every week we have new students coming and we're putting them in classrooms. So we are continuing to grow here. I had the privilege earlier this week to interview some construction companies with some people in the room, and that was fascinating. There are so many acronyms that I had no idea what they meant, but I pretended, and we are just really, really excited for the build of our new elementary school, so thank you voters for passing our bond again. Our culture here at Boarding Elementary School is run off of our pause slips, and you have those in front of you, board members. They are things that we give out to kids when they are following our expectations and doing well. And then the item you have in front of you are our Cougar Kudos cards. And if you follow us along on Facebook, those are for students who go above and beyond. We do a big celebration in the office, take their picture, positive phone call home, and do a big celebration. They get to ring a big cowbell. We also have Playworks this year, which is a recess program that Mrs. Finney is going to speak a little bit more to you about later. And then you'll hear a lot about academics, including our core curriculums for reading, math, and social emotional learning. And I'm just going to point out Charlotte, one of our students who's going to speak, is also a Playworks junior coach, and you can see her with Randy, who we recognized at the school board meeting earlier in the year, and so really excited to share with you more about that. All right, so what's going on at Boarding Elementary School and what are we going to do about it? So Mrs. Finney and I, along with our leadership team, analyzed our data, and what we're really finding is that students have foundational skills, but they have a challenge with applying those into really critical thinking. And so how we're addressing that is really narrowing in on our PLCs, our professional learning communities, with our teachers. We're having clarity and coherence around what we're teaching and why. And with that, we have an emphasis on high quality core instruction for reading and math. This year, we're specifically focused on reading. You're going to hear more about that from our wonderful fifth grade team. And with all that will come increased student self-efficacy that our counseling team is going to talk about, student agency, and that sustained growth that we are actually very excited to talk to you about when we talk about Goal 4. Okay. With that being said, we're going to start off by speaking about Goal 1. This is something that I shared with you when we met earlier in the year. This is just a graph to share like where we're going in the blue and where we want to go with our SBA scores this spring. We want to increase our English language arts or our reading from 42.7% to 47%, and math from 36.1 to 40% by this spring. And fifth grade team, come on up. They are going to talk about how they are putting this goal into practice each day with reading.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We are so excited to share some of the growth, some of the incredible growth our students have been making. My name is Jennifer Cordes. Unfortunately, our fearless leader, Brittany Jarrett, is not able to make it this evening. She is all the way in an emergency, but she is definitely here in spirit, and she has helped us put a lot of this together.
Hi, I'm Laura Long. I'm also one of the fifth grade teachers.
Hello, I'm Adam Kalinowski, fifth grade teacher.
And I'm Jacqueline Macias, fifth grade.
All right, so I'm going to start us off. So the unit that we're currently in is a reading literature text called The Westing Game, about 16 different characters that go through a murder mystery, and they're trying to figure out why this guy died, and it's a big debacle about how they're all related somehow. So the unit is about 10 weeks long, and the things that we're noticing that are really high strengths are that the text is super complex, that they have to follow lots of characters as they're reading, and then the discussion questions and the comprehension questions that the kids are talking about and trying to figure out are really strong, and they gear their minds towards it, that they're very focused. And And then the units are really good at building across and then across different subjects as well. Some of the things that we've noticed that are kind of weaknesses are that the standards, there's no standard-based assessments in the curriculum, and so we're kind of having to make those up on our own, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the same thing with the written responses. And so the written responses don't exactly measure mastery in the way that they are asked. They don't match the standards, and then the rubrics that go with them are very not student-friendly. So we are focusing in this unit on the basis would be that students can retell the events in the story and explain how the characters connect to them, but we're trying to build in a deeper understanding that they can explain how the characters are changing throughout and how the events affect the characters, and then that the theme is building throughout the story. It doesn't just show up.
One of the things that we look at when we first start out planning our units is we want to really look at our learning progression for our students. So we really want to look at it's kind of like a roadmap. We want to look at where they came from, where they need to be right now, and where we want them to be as we are sending them off to middle school. And this basically shows you some of our standards that we cover for our reading. So one of the first ones in bold here, the RL 4.3, you can see that some of them have a bit of a change as they progress through, and we really try to focus on what those little tiny tweaks that we need to make in our instruction in order for them to be able to meet those. Let's see. And really focusing on the rigor that they're going to be asked to do when they go to 6th grade. We're noticing that we've had a lot of challenges with kids not being quite as ready as they need to be. And so in response to that, we've really, again, focused on those core standards and really made sure that they are able to hit those standards so that they have the base and the solid foundation they need as they move to middle school. One of the things that we do in order to be able to track what our students are doing is part of our assessments. And as Noelle mentioned, a lot of things in our curriculum are not really fine-tuned for this, so we've really spent a considerable amount of time to make sure that each and every one of the standards is addressed in the way that we're looking at what our students are learning. So we start out with a pre-assessment that really gives us an idea of where they are at right now, and then based on those, we take it all apart, we look at each standard, how they scored, and then focus our instruction on those areas. Halfway through, we do a mid. That's really a check-in point for us. Is what we're doing effective? Are they really retaining? How are they doing on that progression of the standard? Do we want them to be progressing in the standard, or do we want them to actually have mastery of it? And then we tweak our instruction, do some changes, regroup some students as we then go to the post-test. And that really is the area where we see the most growth, where they have made that progression and are really able to demonstrate what they have learned. One of the things that we've tied in that's really important for our kids that we found was something they were struggling with is the FIAB. And those are basically tests that are very similar to the SBA. And that's the state test that they need to take in May. And we found that kids were just not as prepared. They were not familiar with the language. They were not familiar with the way the questions were being asked. And so everything that we put together really helps expose them to that. So taking not only the material, but then putting it in a format that they are going to see and need to be able to demonstrate with that.
Good evening. Up here you'll see a couple of examples of students' work ranging from 1 to a 4. When we pose them, this is a written response. When we pose this question to the students, it's very deliberate to get them to kind of think outside of just restating the text. So the questions are usually posed, it involves some critical thinking, maybe using some inferencing, and just really analyzing what they read and putting it into words on their written response. So again, ranging from 1 to 4. 1 is they're not really answering the question, they're not restating the question, or they're missing their text evidence, which we require in all written responses. we want them to be able to articulate what they're saying, but also back it up with text. That gives them experience and exposure to going into the text and being able to pull it out. I know it's very difficult to read from this where you're sitting at. So one, they're missing the restating the question, the text quotes, not citing it properly. That's something we're also really big on, making sure that they're citing things properly, especially moving up into middle school, so they have that skill. And then for citing it, we always have them do the same structure. So it's according to whatever book it is they're reading, on page whatever, and then we emphasize quotation marks, and it has to be word for word to the book. So that is, every written response is that same format, so they get, again, more and more exposure to it. And so a 2 would be they're missing 1 or 2 things from it. They're not quite there. A 3 would be they hit all those things. They've got their 2 text evidence. They've got their it's cited properly. They've restated the question. And then a 4, that's when they're going a little bit beyond. They're expanding on their explanation. They're expanding on their thinking. How does this connect? Why does it connect? In addition to that, there's no grammatical errors. Capitalization's good. Punctuation's good. It's just a solid, good paper where it's hard to find something wrong with it. So those were just a couple of examples of student works for 1 through 4.
I have the data here for our iReady. We test it in the fall and then we test it in winter. So our first graph on the top left, the light represents the fall and the dark represents the winter. And we have 6 priority standards that we test. We have point of view, figurative language, theme. I knew I was going to do this. I'm notorious for forgetting these. Quoting accurately, vocabulary, and very contrasting. Thank you. I lead on my team. We notice about the first graph is that we have a consistent growth. There's no one isolated area that we succeeded. We grew across the entire 6 priority standards, which we are very excited about. And the graph below here shows we started in fall at a grade level of 37% of our students, and by winter, we were grade level at 56%, growing 19%, which made us extremely happy for our students. And if we could take a look at our 2nd grade and below, we were thriving to see that we dropped, which tells us that our struggling readers are now reaching those proficient goals, or attempting to reach those proficient goals, which makes us very happy that they're giving their guts to us. Up to the top right, the Westing game, a fan favorite, as Mrs. Long was stating. We have quite fun with this book. This shows our pre-test, which was, yes, our pre-test and our mid-unit. And this, once again, assesses all 6 priority standards. And as you can see, once again, that it shows growth across all priority standards, not just one isolated area. And one area that we noticed a high jump in was our point of view. And we took really intense time in teaching the students point of view, because it's not an easy thing to teach. And we were really thrilled to see they were grasping that with the Westing game. And our final graph, the literature growth, we have Walk 2 Moons, which we began, that's a good one, in the fall, and the Westing game, which we began in the winter. Both represent our pre-test. And as you can see, it was a huge jump from the fall to the winter in our pre-test. And this one was one to celebrate because figurative language, as you can see, took a huge jump from 4 students to 69 students. And figurative language was not something that most 5th graders had much exposure to, so to see that huge jump was really something for us to celebrate. So we take great pride in our kids giving all the effort.
Okay, so this is where our students have gone through and reflected on their learning at the halfway point of our unit and then set some goals for themselves. So in the pie charts below, we can see their scores from their pre and their mid. And then the post, we haven't taken it yet, but this is them, what they want and what they think that they can attain once they take that post. So we have majority of the kids think that they can push themselves to a 4, which is awesome. Above that is a question that they answered on a Google form. With the sentence stem, I believe that setting my own goals and working towards it helps me, and they had to fill in how it helps them. And so most of them said that it helps them push to get to that goal, it helps them succeed in life, and then they believe that setting their own goals helps them achieve it. And then down in the right corner is a template of what it looks like when we goal set. And so each kid receives one of those templates where they write their goal down for the unit, and then on the graph next to it, they keep track of what they got for their pre-test, what they got for their mid, and then what they got for their post. And so once we give them their mid-test back, they make a goal on the bottom, which is a little bit small right now, but they decide what they want to focus on for the rest of the unit. And it's all standards-based, so which standard do they really want to focus on? And then at the top, we see what most of those kids chose. And so they went through on the same Google form and chose what they chose on their paper. And most of our students want to focus on theme and summarizing the text, as well as vocabulary and then doing text evidence. And then I have 3 kiddos here who want to talk about how they goal set in the classroom. You guys want to come up? Okay, introduce yourself before I ask you a question.
Hello, my name is Alexander. What I think helps for people having partners is for other people to find stuff people don't find or don't see with their own mind, and to get correcting on stuff they accidentally made mistake on. If they did, then they get checking from their partner to help them get a better score of what they do.
Hi, I'm Clint, and I'm talking about how I make and achieve goals. Goal setting is when you choose how much growth you want to make and how hard you want to push yourself to reach it. We often do this in writing. When we write written responses for the Weston game, the book we are reading, we use the acronym RACES. RACES stands for R, restate the question, A, answer the question, C, cite text evidence, E, explain, S, summarize what you said. This helps me be able to reach my goals because there's a clear path for me to follow, and I know exactly what I need to do to get a 3 or 4. When I reach a goal that I've been working working on, it makes me feel really good and proud of what I'm capable of. When I succeed in a goal, it makes me want to try harder, reach further, and go bigger by setting higher goals and never giving up.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. In my class, we use goal-setting sheets to set goals. I monitor my learning by tracking my scores that I get on my test. These scores show me if I'm growing. I can compare my scores from my pre-test to my mid-unit. This lets me know what areas I need to work on. I take my post-test, for example, comparing characters when it comes to their actions and feelings. I use graphic organizers to show my learning. This helps me as a learner because it lets me write down the information my teacher is asking me for, and then I have to find text evidence to support my thinking. Using the goal sheet increases my confidence because it lets me see if I'm growing, and it pushes me to keep going to improve my score, and it lets me see that I am learning more about what I'm reading.
All right, so one of the things that we do with all of this information that we get from the kiddos and all the hard work that they do, we really look at analyzing the data that we get from them. So we try to take apart the different standards. You can see a few examples there for theme, vocabulary, word analysis, and we look at percentages. And we're looking at 47% for theme, meeting, so 53 are not. And then we really dive deep into what exactly it is that they need to be able to meet that. And we also look at some of the different factors that we know influence our student performance. because these are things that sometimes are out of our control, and then how can we respond to those and help those kiddos that might have that deficiency. So we have frequent absences with a lot of our students. We have a lot of behavior-related removals that really impact their ability to learn, and then different access to language and academic discourse for some of our second language learners, and then pacing and processing needs for things like IEPs. And so we have spent a lot of time working with different departments within the school to help support us in those areas, to really help those kids that normally would probably fall through the cracks, and we've seen really good results from them as well. So these are some of the things also that we do in response to needs that we see with our students. One of our biggest ones is intervention, basically where we look at where do they need their growth most and how can we best support them. We break them into different groups. We have a program that's called Walk to Reading. We have the kids in different groups, different skills, and then the lessons that we give them and what we're teaching them is specifically targeted at that. We kind of look at it as like a puzzle, and they have a few little pieces, and boy, once you get those pieces in, they are ready to take off. And so we have found that that is the best strategy, because sometimes they just need a little bit and then they're good to go. So really looking at that intentionality of our instruction and our practices, and those smaller groups really help get us the results that you have seen. And then for the kiddos that are already there, they are already on top of it, and we really want to make sure that they are also challenged, even though they are proficient or receiving 4s above and beyond. We want to make sure that they are not left behind and that they continue to have extension opportunities to really push them in those areas that we know they can, really increasing their independence and being able to apply those skills even deeper.
I'm back. Okay, so our next steps and lessons learned here. We will continue using our mid-unit data, that's that mid-checkpoint, just to make sure that we're on the right track. That gives us an opportunity to adjust and self-reflect as a team. Is this working? Is this, what we're doing here, is this working to reach this standard? If it's not, we get together, we tweak it, we try to figure out what's best. Bottom line is we're here for them. We put a lot of effort into making sure we're doing what we can to help those kids succeed the most. So we're very data-driven. A lot of our information is based off of the data that we get from the students. Then our next step, increasing the supported practice, we're just continuing to bridge those gaps, making those smaller, helping them succeed and get to the point so when they move into middle school, there isn't a huge gap. There's no struggle there. There's an easy transition for them to continue to grow. Growth is like the main thing we want here. Students engaging in that analysis of the feedback, that's something we as teachers do with our students, is we're continuously giving them feedback, whether it's written on their written responses or their exit tickets, or just one-on-one with them, or just stopping by and being like, hey, this is written here, you got that, we're on the right track, what do you think next? And just kind of probing them to see what their understanding is, their level of understanding. And just, if it's not quite there, just giving them that nudge in the right direction to reach that. But constant feedback to these students, they like it, and I think that also helps us achieve our overall goals. And then extension for those that are continuing to demonstrate, like those students that are performing on 4s and those written responses, continuing to nurture and feed that, and getting them to think and go beyond what they're already doing, and just giving them a little push again to see if they can continue to thrive and grow. But it's fluid. It's so changing all the time. We're adjusting all the time. Like I said, just the amount of brain power that is spent trying to develop just what are we trying to get them to understand? How can we gauge that from their responses? We're just constantly tweaking, and it's just so fluid. But at this time, I'd like to open up any questions to our team over here that you may have.
you were talking about the Western game at the beginning, in relationship to, in relationship to the bookworms curriculum, you mentioned character, which I thought was excellent. 15 characters was excellent for point of view. I thought that was, did they emphasize character before that? Because I would hope, did they emphasize character before that?
So, when we were doing the walk to moons, there were times where we had the students do written responses or think about individual characters, like their point of view or how they're reacting to something, just to give that compare and contrast between different characters, but it wasn't that high of a number. I think we had 5 or 6 characters maybe in walk 2.
Yeah.
So this kind of brought it up to the next level to just kind of throw more parts at them. Just, again, more exposure to see. Did I tap on that answer?
Well, no, I guess I was asking if bookworms emphasized it in walk 2 moons, or if that was you picked it up and added it.
That was kind of us, so we focused a lot on graphic organizers and Venn diagrams, so they'll have 2 different characters, and they're analyzing how the characters are responding to the same event that's happening. And that's not something that bookworms really.
Good, because I was really worried. Wow, you did work on a character. You're sending me 15 characters. Wow. Good. Good pickup. Very good.
Well, I would like to congratulate you on your good results. We had the opportunity to review your season plans, your school improvement plans, and saw the original plan with lofty goals for improvement and support for the students. So it's really exciting to see your progress just this far through the school year. So I want to commend you on your work. Some of the things you said really stood out to me. I don't know if there's a curriculum program that exists that checks all the boxes, but I love to hear how you put your heads together and close the gaps the students need in order to succeed at those levels. And so I commend you on that work. Also, as a board member, some of the feedback I hear from community, like it's been a while since I've been in school, and it was traditional for us to bring home homework and for parents to see all that work. And I just want to point out like how much rigorous work and learning is occurring in classroom, and those feedback opportunities are in person, in the moment, and frequent for students, because we don't always see that at home, and I don't want families to think it's not happening. So the evidence you showed us tonight, I think is a really good example of the work students are doing in class and the learning and how it's working for kids in that way, in ways that it maybe didn't work for a lot of us back in the day. So I just want to point that out and appreciate that work that you're doing for our students.
I have a question, like how much homework do they take home?
My student,
So we have debated on this the last couple of years, and because as you mentioned, it is so focused, and so to sometimes send things home like that is sometimes, I mean, we get it more with the math because everybody's like, oh, you're math. And so, but for the reading, you know, I just tell parents, we are so rigorous during the day. We just ask that they read 30 to 40 minutes at night at home and do it for the joy of reading. We spend so much time really in these novels and just breaking them apart and hitting all of these pieces. It's a lot of brain power, and they're tired at the end of the day. And so I think sometimes, you know, part of that is, you know, my response to parents is they've done the work. They've done the work during the day, and all we ask is that they do some of that reading for pleasure, things that they really want. But we can see that they are making the results, so I don't worry that they're not getting other extension activities. We've already covered that, yeah.
My granddaughter's in 5th grade in Idaho,
much rather spend my time planning with my team and making sure that we get everything spot on in class and then give them that time to rest.
Well, whatever you're doing, it's working, as your data shows it. That's amazing. That is incredible. Wow.
And not everybody has assistants for homework. And,
Yes.
and that has nothing to do with the child. So I applaud that. And you should find enjoyment in reading too. If you're not that hard. I mean, and I love that you had the mid-unit checkup, because especially like this one was like 10 weeks long. I mean, that'd be a long time to wait to find out how they were doing, you know. So I mean, not that you don't do that daily, but I mean, and the kids, you know. So I really, really like the way you use the data from the standards too, instead of just what's there in the curriculum, because you have to do that. So good job.
I don't have any questions, but I'm also just going to say congratulations. I think the evidence of your good work, and if you're not an educator or a higher educator, you don't really know necessarily the exact inner workings of the group of teachers and how you teach kids. You explained it very, very well. And I thought, I'm like, oh wow, we have a great group. They're actually taking that curriculum and picking it apart, but this works, this doesn't, and creating their own to go with it. And those are things that on the outside people don't really see. So that's a lot of hard work on your behalf, and it's evident in the way that your students presented themselves tonight. They were very articulate and well spoken and knew exactly what they wanted to say, and I applaud them.
And I was gonna say, as you were going over the homework and not wanting them, you know, like, hey, I'm stressed out, I gotta read, not enjoy it, right? I'm one of a student back in the day that I didn't want to read, so I love that when they go home, they're doing it for enjoyment, and then they're getting that passion to read and growing from that. So that's a great approach on that, and I love it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, our students and their families, you are more than welcome to stay, but we would like to offer you a moment to leave if you would like to do so. Thank you so much.
Great job, students.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. But my name is Abigail Finney. I have the pleasure of being the assistant principal here at Oregon Elementary, and I get to talk about our second CSIP goal, and soon I will have a partner join me up here. So our second goal is really around community partnerships. And in the past, this goal has been something that's been focused on the number of volunteers that we've had coming through our building, which is super important. But this year, we really wanted to look at the data that we have around family and community engagement and see what would be the highest leverage area of focus for us. And so we looked at a piece of data from our community panorama survey that is essentially asking families how involved they feel in providing input around decisions regarding their child's education. That's a really critical piece of data for us. And so up there underlined is the exact statement. We're already at 80%. We wanted to increase 10% to 90% by our spring panorama survey. So this is the metric that we have, and as you can see, we really wanted to approach this goal with the knowledge and the acknowledgement that this is already really an area of strength for our staff. We really have strong relationships here with our community and with our families, and we really thrive on those parent partnerships. And we wanted to just see what approach could we as leaders take to kind of uncover any of those barriers that might be remaining and get us from that 80% closer to 100. So with that, we designed some professional development specifically aligned to engaging families in decisions about their child's learning, not just communicating information about behavior or grades, that how do we really invite that family voice into decisions that we make? One of the pieces of research that we looked at, it's okay, that I thought was really interesting because we talk about student self-efficacy a lot. That's kind of a common phrase for us around here. But I looked at lots of different pieces of research before presenting things to our staff, and we found teacher self-efficacy is really positively impacted by mutually beneficial, consistent family partnership. And that's something that I've observed in my own role. I mean, I spend hours each day communicating with families, and I know our teachers really spend a lot of that time as well. And when there's that mutually beneficial, mutually solution-focused mindset in our communication with families, that makes you feel like you can do your job better, right? And we want that for our teachers. We want to remove those barriers. Some teachers are, scared to call home, or there's that fear of like, what are they gonna say? And those are the very real things that we want to address that could get our staff collectively up from that 80% to a 90%. So, we did a lot of partnership with our intervention team, and Stephanie's going to talk about that in a moment. I just wanted to touch on one more piece about the professional development that we did with our staff. It was very teacher talk based. We're really into active student engagement within our classrooms, and lots of opportunities to respond, and students doing the cognitive heavy lifting. We wanted to model that in our staff professional development as well. And so we just took lots of very real life, sticky parent partnership situations, and we had teams process through those. What barriers do you see? What are some things that are coming up for us as we're looking at these situations? And where do we go next? What are the maybe biases that we have that we can uncover collectively, and maybe help identify some of our next moves to help us be more effective communicators with our families. And again, not just presenting information, but that focus of really soliciting input. So Stephanie's going to talk a little bit about what this looks like within our intervention systems and what has changed over the past couple years.
Hello, I'm Stephanie, I'm going to be interventionist here. One thing we really made a point of this year is to make sure that me or Ruth, who's our MTSS specialist, attended every fall conference of a student that was tier 2 or tier 3. That allowed us to really connect with families and have them have a face to someone who might potentially reach out, or someone who might have resources for them. That led to several parents asking, like, hey, what can we do at home? And following through on that was what we were able to provide, and we actually saw several kids exit from intervention in the months following that. So that was really a big celebration for us. We also started attending all referral meetings, so parents that are needing to discuss the possibility of a special education referral, Ruth or I started attending all of those. Just at that point, they will then seen us a few times. So it's just another person at the table that is a familiar face that they've already connected with. And then when we talk about those referral meetings, we meet as an MTSS team and say, yes, we want to potentially talk to parents and keep going the next steps. We sit and call with the teacher. So they're hearing from the teacher, and they're also then hearing our voice again. So it's kind of a consistency all the way through. Do you have any questions?
No questions, but I really appreciate the fact that you are taking the time to attend the conferences and making that connection. I don't think anybody can really realize how big that is for the parents, as obviously evidenced by their becoming more engaged and asking what they can do at home instead of being told what they need to do. They're asking for that. So I love that.
Thank you. Makes those hard conversations later down the line a lot easier.
It seems like such a simple, I mean, it seems like such a simple thing. But what an impact it has for both the student and the families. It's empowering to the families too in their students' education. And it seems like a simple thing. I'm sure it is. It takes a lot of time and commitment, scheduling, arranging, and
2022 is as we are developing our intervention systems, we're actually seeing less students. So as we, so as we're strengthening our core instruction and really streamlining these systems, we're seeing less students. So for example, in 5th grade, I think we're serving like 3. So hopefully that won't be a problem. Hopefully it's actually the opposite end. And, or maybe it's more of our younger kids that are just starting school that, you know, be able to be a more visible person. But I'm hoping that's the opposite problem.
Yeah.
That's it, okay.
Yeah, it'll be fun to hear, you know, as the years go on, how that will forward.
Yeah.
Just pausing. Okay.
And, you know, and also, because skip ahead, but those are incredible numbers. Those are really high percentages. Yeah, that's insane. I don't know of other districts that have, to me, what I interpret this to mean is not just frequent, ongoing, sustained communication, but also confidence in what's happening in this building. So confidence from the community, parents, sending their kids here. That's wild. Great job improving those. Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Hello, I'm Megan Foley. I'm the school counselor at Ording Elementary, and this is Kyla Cosme. She is my counseling intern this year. We will be presenting about our whole child goal, and then Abigail's also going to pop in just at the end. But we're going to do the heavy lifting for this one. So our goal this year is to increase, oh, I didn't click it. Okay, our goal this year is to increase our students in grades 3 through 5 and their favorable response in our panorama survey in the section of self-efficacy. So we want them to increase from 41% favorable up to 61% favorable. And our why behind that is we want students to believe that they can achieve high expectations, they can achieve high learning standards, they can learn hard things, they can apply classroom strategies, and they can complete classwork successfully. So that is why we want them to improve that. Kyla is going to talk about some goal setting.
Yes, so the 5th grade team touched on goal setting in the classroom. And from what I've seen, I mean, this is my first year here, but from what I've seen, I think like most classrooms, if not all, are doing some kind of goal setting, whether academic or something like that. For these, at least right here, we're really focusing on behaviors. And so these first 2 boxes right here are examples of what the students will see and what we give to the teachers to track progress. And so yeah, this first one I created on the top. I can follow directions the first time, so that's about classroom behaviors. That's for a first grader. And then this one down here is a little bit, well, we don't have the happy faces, right? It's just did we complete our work, yes, no, and that's for a little bit of an older kiddo to make sure there's like work completion there. And then these 2 photos are examples of what the student is working on their end, right? So for this one right here where we have our root beer float, he has a daily goal. He's a first grader. And every time he meets his daily goal, he gets to add into his little thermometer, and when he was all the way up, he got a root beer float. So that is what this is. And then this other kiddo right here, a little bit older, he has just started his behavior tracker. So his isn't quite as exciting yet, but he's working towards it.
All right, and something else that we've done to try and help close this gap is Kyla and I presented to our staff, our certificated staff members. We presented for an hour after school, and then Miss Finney had done her slide about family engagement. So we presented for an hour. What we did is we broke down every single question from the self-efficacy section. So we showed our staff how students were responding, And then we have slides. This is an example where I had the question. Kyla and I talked about some of the behaviors that show up if a student's not responding favorably. And then we gave strategies. So we weren't just like, here you go, these are the behaviors and that's it. We gave them strategies to try and address, decrease the behavior and increase the self-efficacy. So on this slide, our example was talking about teaching students to persist through challenges. And our staff got to hear me go on a whole long spiel about Sam Darnold, our Seahawks quarterback, and how, he had a rough time. He was a #1 pick, didn't perform well, basically got benched, had a really hard time, but ultimately he won a Super Bowl. It took him some time. The only way he got there, though, was because of his high self-efficacy. His belief in himself is what let him continue and persist through the challenge. So I told them way more details about it. They probably didn't want to know. But I was like, it's a good example for our students who are following along with the Seahawks and connecting. And so what was really cool is Miss Ritz, she actually then went and found a video about the Sam Darnold story and presented it to her students. So they got to learn and hear about that and see someone that they, idolize and watch him persist through challenges. This is another example of one of our questions, talking about when a complicated idea is talked about in class. Can you understand it? How sure are you that you can understand what's being talked about? And what we noticed is a lot of our students have a hard time articulating the questions they have about it. I don't really know why I don't understand it, and they don't know how to ask questions or seek clarification or explain their thinking when the thinking is not quite right. So what we suggested to our staff was using sentence stems, and Kyla and I showed primary examples as well as like upper elementary examples, and we offered to make posters for our teachers, and a lot of them took me up on it. So this is one of the posters over in Miss Laramore's classroom in her kindergarten class. So it was really exciting watching our teachers want to implement that as young as kindergarten, and we also had time for staff to collaborate because our data was showing that there was a disconnect in what self-efficacy means from grade to grade. And so if we can align that thinking, then we all have a similar understanding of what that looks like. And so Kinder got to talk to first grade about what's self-efficacy for you guys and work to align that. And then handing it back to Kyla.
Yeah, so just expanding on student self-efficacy, Megan and I went into some classrooms and did some mini lessons, like 20 to 30 minutes. And the kind of prompt of the lesson was everyone got 2 little strips of paper, and on one strip, they're encouraged to write something that they're good at or that they're proud of themselves or something that is one of their strengths. And then on the other one, it is something that we're working on improving. And Megan and I gave our own examples, and then we went around, had everyone read them, and then the final result was a paper chain. And so we kind of got to see like all the things we're good at and what we're working on, and did that.
We're going to be talking about self-efficacy. Does anyone know what that means? Or want to take a guess?
It might be whatever efficacy is, you're just doing this to yourself.
Oh, whatever. When we don't give up on ourselves. So, a lot of those answers are all kind of part of self-efficacy. You know the clock up there? What's the clock say up there?
You can do hard things.
You can do hard things. That's pretty much what self-efficacy is. Believing that you can do hard things and keeping yourself going, being resilient, so try not to give up on things.
I am good at soccer because I like soccer. I think it's really cool as my nutrition. And I can keep trying to play this.
Okay, so I'm my strength is being a mathematician, and I'm working on building 7th grade math.
Self-efficacy.
Yeah, self-efficacy. Did someone remember what self-efficacy was? Yeah, I believe you can do something, Kayana. Knowing you can do something hard. Ebony. that was obviously very short and we had to be on a tight schedule, but yeah, that was our little lesson, and now Miss B.
So one of the really cool opportunities that we have had this year to really inspire that sense of empowerment and leadership and self-efficacy in our older students is through our Playworks program at Recess. And one of the key components of that are our junior coaches. And these are 4th and 5th grade students that have to apply to be junior coaches out at younger recesses. So our kindergarten and 3rd grade recess, or our 1st and 2nd. And one of the really cool things we've been able to do throughout this program is empower some of our students who maybe are not always picked for things. So we kind of always have those kids, they're gonna come to the school board meetings, they're gonna come to the bond presentations, they're gonna be in student council, right? But we have a lot of our students who maybe are not always at the forefront of experiences like that show really great leadership skills with our younger kids. And so getting to see some of those students who may even be like behavior students, oh no, and they get to be leaders out on the playground with younger kids. And that has been super cool to see. And we've seen that affect our recess behavior referrals all across the school. And so younger kids are getting to see the cool older kids at recess, right? Showing them examples, helping them work through problems. We don't always have to solve things through fisticuffs. We can rock it out, as they say in Playworks, do rock, paper, scissors. And then of course the older students have that more deeply ingrained sense of responsibility when they go out to recess as well, because they know that they are student leaders. And so at this time, as of 3 days ago when I pulled the data, our playground referrals are down 65% of last year. So at this time last year, we had something like over 400. It was like 429, and we're currently below 200. We're at like 160. So that's a pretty significant data point for us. You guys all know what our facilities look like. Yeah, so that's been a really cool way that self-efficacy has kind of been able to translate through to different areas of the school, not just the classroom. It's been very, very cool to see. Any questions?
Yeah, how do the student leaders, does somebody come in and teach them games and how to work with students? So is that a one-time thing, or are students doing that like once a month?
That's a great question. So we have our partner, his name is Coach Casey at Playworks, and he comes out to our campus once a month for a week at a time. And during that week, he meets with our junior coaches, and he walks them through different games and kind of like some problem-solving strategies. And then I also meet with our junior coaches once a month on an additional day when Coach Casey is not here. And then in addition to that, they're also learning new games with him during their classes game time. So on the week that he's here, in addition to being out at all of our recesses helping to facilitate games, he also meets with each individual class throughout the school and teaches them 1 or 2 new games that they can use. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. Yeah.
I absolutely love, and you're the second school we've heard this from, that using panorama data and teaching to it and using the language throughout your lessons. One thing I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if they also used some of that language like in literature discussions? I mean, when you were talking about persistence, all I could think of was walk to boom. I mean, because it is a language of metacognition, and you're teaching them how to think about thinking, and it doesn't matter whether it's playground or math or reading. And I just love that you're bringing it throughout the school. And I wanted to say, yes, I wrote up 65% in the playground. I mean, when I was here, the playground was a mess, and you have even more. So I was just thinking, wow.
I want to just acknowledge, again, the teamwork that I'm hearing about at this school. Usually when you think of school counselors, you're in an office in the back of the school somewhere, and the kids are going to you. And the idea that you are going to the staff who then ask for your assistance, and you're giving really good examples and samples of things and how to do it to get
watching the interaction with the students and showing that self, right? Yeah, that's amazing. So I just love seeing what is going on and how much growth that we're getting at OES, right? So yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ruth Maris, and I'll be presenting with Stephanie and...
Hi, I'm Stacey Roberts, and I am the 3 through 5th resource room teacher.
So I'm Ruth Maris. I work with the multi-tier systems of supports in the school, and so we're going to look at Goal 4 and specifically to those students that we're serving in Tier 3, reading intervention. So how is MTSS, LAP, and SED helping these learners grow every day? And so our goal that we have is by spring 2026, we want to reduce the percentage of students who are performing 2 or more grade levels from 25% to 15%, and we want to increase those students that are performing at or above grade level from 31% to 45%. And this is based in our iReady diagnostic. So we take that assessment 3 times a year. So we took it in fall, we took it in winter, and we're going to take it again in spring. And so with that, we have intervention programs that are helping us with students that need that extra support. So we look at their diagnostic and we look at the students that really need that support in reading. And so we have our SIPS program with this instruction and phonemic awareness, phonics, and sight words. We have 95% RAP, which is a reading achievement program. And we have UFly, which we're using for students kindergarten to 3rd grade. We actually have met our goal based in our winter, so that's a great celebration. In our winter diagnostic, we saw that we are at 11% of students who are 2 or more grade levels below, and we are at 47% for students who are at or above. So we're just mid-year, and we already met that goal. So now we talked about what is going to be that next goal that we want to achieve. And so our new goal is we want to decrease from 11% to 9% by spring, and we want to increase our at or above grade level from 47% to 55%. So this is what we look at, and so we already see that triangle that is changing, right? We see a lot less red and more green, and that's where we want to be at the end of the year.
Darn it, right? So how we've gotten there is Ruth and I really have taken a deep dive into each student's iReady data and look at each section of that data to figure out if it's a phonics instruction, do they need comprehension, do they need vocabulary, and then progress monitored and adjusted our groups. Our groups are really fluid. Sometimes you'll have a student that will be all of a sudden excelling after only 4 weeks, and other times you have kids that are in that same group for a lot longer. So we really have been really fluid about that. And as the year goes on, sometimes kids become on a teacher's radar that maybe they weren't in the fall. So we've been really flexible with that. We have lots of groups in SIPs and RAP at all grade levels. So I have 3 full-time paras and a part-time para. And then there's me and Ruth, and then Stacy is also still using those programs in the resource room. And we've kept our lab groups as small as we can numbers-wise, but also, as you had suggested earlier, our 4th and 5th grade ones are a lot smaller than anywhere else, which is the goal you would hope for, that as kids are getting older and getting that quality instruction, there's less intervention needed. And so this is our growth data. So in the fall, we had 40 students in grades 1 through 5 in RAP. And now in the winter, we have 35 students. But although that only looks like a decrease of 5, we also added kindergarten in there in the winter. And SIPs went from 36 students in the fall to 29 in the winter. We actually have exited about 29 students this year. So those, you can tell by that those numbers are definitely really fluid. So we have a couple of students, and I just asked them, like, tell me how reading intervention has helped you. And these happen to be 2 5th grade boys.
helped you?
Hey Tanner, how did reading intervention help you?
Reading adventure helped me breaking apart big words and make my fluency go really faster.
Good job.
Okay, so for the sped department, we also use 95 RAP, and this is our second year really diving into it, and so we've seen some amazing growth. This is just a snapshot of some 4th and 5th grade students that I have on IEPs and the progress they've made on their reading goals. So the full bar is like how many goals they have. So typically a student will have like 3 reading goals. And the blue is showing how many of those reading goals they've already met. And then the red is just what they have left. So you can see several have already met all of their reading goals at this point in the school year. So they're really doing a wonderful job of taking these programs to heart and really working hard in our room. They enjoy it. And so we've seen some amazing success. One of the students in 5th grade also just had her IEP in December, and she's already met all 3 of her goals. So she was a new one to me, so she just got qualified and has already just went amazing with this program. So I have a video of the students talking about what 95 RAP is, what do we do with it, how is it making them better, their thoughts on the whole program.
If Stacy's voice is real loud and sorry.
What is an IEP and why do you have one?
It's an individual IEP plan just for you.
Okay, and why do you have one?
I have one because I need help with math, reading, writing.
I have IEP goals, and I go to a resource to work on that.
What is 95 RAP?
Decoding, slowly answering questions, reading, writing.
The reason why we do 95 RAP here is because it helps us get better at reading it faster so our parents can get proud of us.
How does graphing your fluency help you?
I look at my graph before fluency, then try to beat that score. After I read, I get to color my graph and see my growth.
How has 95 RAP helped you meet your goals?
I had 3 reading goals, and doing rap helped me reach these goals.
Okay, any questions?
No questions, just comment, of course. Because I can't help myself. The fact that you met your goal, and then instead of just being okay with that and saying, hey, we met our goal, you set new ones. Kudos to you guys for doing that. And I just also want to acknowledge that to meet those kinds of goals, you don't get that with just big picture stuff. You guys are really so evident that you're digging into each and every student on an individual basis. And I know IEP is individual, but the fact that you are doing that is so evident, and it's so amazing to be able to sit here and witness that and see those wins. It's just a great job, great job. This is for business, but we make investments in those programs that support student learning, and it's important for us as board members, as we're looking at budgets, to see the outcomes of those investments. So it's great to see not just like one program, but how you're combining those programs to line up with what students need. So thank you for doing that, and congrats on meeting the goals. That's a new goal. Can't wait to see you hit that and be by spring. It's like spring, almost here. That's awesome. Congrats.
Okay, well with that, this is kind of our final slide. So we hope that you can see at OES here that with clarity for our teaching staff and our students, along with that engagement. So yes, learning is not a spectator sport, right? Plus, I hope that you saw evident with our kids that they're really owning their goals and their learning, and that we're seeing the growth that we want here. And so thank you for everything tonight, and we're so excited to be here.
One of the things I kept hearing was how you're using the different information to form rubrics like the triad that you guys use to then make sure that your rubrics met multiple assessments and using the standards too. And I love the way all of it is so well connected with the rubrics and reflections on whether it's behavior, like cognition, because it's all thinking. And any of those things that they originally applied, they can apply that to now. So wonderful, wonderful.
I love to, like, I'm watching from the elementary level, you're setting up middle school and high school for success. Like, it comes from you down here, and it starts in kindergarten, right? And so you're setting it up. Your numbers are phenomenal. Like, you're doing something right, and I do feel very strongly about the parent involvement and the parent knowledge of
how are we addressing that? Where are we focusing our energy? So I think as a board, and still always speak for the whole board, but we want to encourage you to keep going. And we're proud of what you've accomplished so far. So thank you both.
And I do have to add, I love that I need help tying my shoes is still here. And what it reminds me of is that, well, I mean, you guys